Cool. Axel, it's great to meet you. I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
No, likewise. I'm excited to chat to you.
So first things first, I would love for you to just briefly tell me about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
So I'm currently a director of demand generation at a cybersecurity SaaS company called UpGuard. We're a Series B funded company, which funnily enough, headquartered in Australia, but with a large US presence. But in terms of my career, I've been at a number of different places.
Within your current role, what are some of the things that you're up to right now, or some of the things that you've been up to the last, 6 months to a year?
So a big part of the role is to generate leads and pipeline and revenue for the sales team to close. So campaigns is a big one for us, like running campaigns, trying to make sure that the things that we create reaches the audience that we want, like distribution. I think as marketers these days, creation is important in terms of content, in terms of great offers, but distribution is equally important. So a big focus on that and just continually improving our website. Like
Nice.
cybersecurity specifically, it's a bit different to selling martech and sales tech. Like to stand out with a really great website and a really great digital experience. We aim for that, and we're going to continue doing that. So a lot of time spent there to invest in our what I would call a digital storefront.
So, you started your career in law from what I've seen. So first lawyer turned marketer I've spoken to. What made you decide to leave that profession and switch over to marketing?
I'm surprised I'm the first person you've spoken to. There's actually quite a number of people that I know who went to law school and made the switch to something else. Like I remember the group of friends that I'm the closest with at law school, there's probably like a total of 10 of us. I would say two, max three maybe are still in the profession. They've all switched to something
Wow.
else. And I think that's partly to do with during high school when you're choosing your career path in college or university, kind of don't really know what you're doing. You're this like 16, 17, 18-year-old trying to figure it all out. And like you see at the time, like there's all these like suits and like Boston Legal, and you're like, oh, they look like they do cool stuff. So I started my career in that, went to law school, did 3 years as part of like a graduate early lawyer program at one of the firms in Sydney, Australia. And then I realized that, hey, this is cool, but this wasn't my passion. I wasn't entirely loving it. I would consider myself good at it. But to give you a very specific example, we got invited to like board meetings of the companies that were clients of ours. And then there's all these long table, exactly what you'd imagine a board meeting of a large company would be. And the lawyers would sit on one side and everyone else would sit everywhere else. And then the leaders of the company would talk about what I would call the exciting stuff. And like, is the company going to grow? What are the projects we're focusing on in order to get more market share, in order to get more revenue? Then only reach out to the lawyer to say, hey, we're going to do this. What's the risk? Or are we okay doing this? What's the legal implications? We'd say our staff, some of the stuff, and like, oh, we shouldn't do it. And then they were like, yeah, okay, whatever. We're gonna take on the risk and do it. And you go, maybe I want to be on that side. And then I
Yeah.
think that's part of the things that triggered me to like moving to the other side of business.
Any skills you learned as a lawyer that are transferable or helping you right now as a marketer?
Yeah, I think two things. Number one is marketers love talking about the specific things they're working on, right? Around what's the campaign you're working on, what's this little tool that you're implementing to make everything a little bit better. But really, a big part of us being able to do your job is like project managing, like doing the things that is a priority and important, and making sure the other stuff, like either they keep plodding along, maybe less of a focus, but knowing of what to focus your time on and influencing other people in the organization. If you talk to sales, if you talk to the CS org, if you talk to the product team or service team, whichever your product you have, being able to influence them like this is important and manage that, because you don't always have people reporting into you, but you still need their help. So I think that's one part of it. The second part of it is the writing. I think more and more, it's 2023, writing is really crucial in terms of being a good marketer, whether that's conversion copywriting, whether that's creating content, whether that's just communicating with internally or externally. I think being a lawyer has helped me improve my communication skills and the writing aspect of it, because I don't think any good writer I know is like can say like, oh, I'm a horrible writer.
So yeah, you've held, several marketing specialist and manager roles in the last 5 years. In your eyes, how have you known when it's time to, maybe leave a role and look for a new one? Do you have a decision criteria that you're going through in your head?
Yeah, my number one is learning. Really, I
Yep.
think for all of us employed marketers in companies, I see myself as being lucky to be employed to learn. Am I continually learning in the role? Like if you're in a role for at the start, you're learning a lot. Like the learning curve is steep potentially. Like you are learning about the product, you're learning about the industry, you're learning about the people you're working with. Like how do they work? How does your boss like things reviewed? Do you go print something out, or do you like sit next to them, or do you just send them a Google Doc? So there's a learning curve that's important. But the longer you stay in a role, for me, you need to continually assess whether are you still learning in the job. Because if you're not learning in the job, then how are you growing both professionally and personally? That's really it for me. The number one is like, am I learning? Or the other flip side is like, do I see a bigger learning opportunity in the next role? But my suggestion to people would be give your current place a shot. Like don't stay there for a few months and like, oh, I'm not learning, I'm out of here. Because you may never know, there's other circumstances that are out of your control. That's why you're not learning for that given week or that given month. But continually learning is the number one for me.
Cool. Love that. I think it's a great one. Yeah, I think Alex Hermosi, I don't know if you listen to a lot of his stuff, but he always says you're either in learning season or earning season. And when you're young, you should be in learning season.
No, I totally agree.
And yeah, it seems like, the further you're getting into your career, you started at the EY, KPMG, Dropbox, Cisco, so all bigger companies. Now you're going, a little bit into the smaller companies. Is there a reason for that? And what are you learning differently at these smaller companies that you maybe didn't get at the bigger ones?
Yeah, I think the answer is it depends on you. Some people prefer the large companies which has better structure. To give a very simple example is when you join a large company, everything is set up. You get your laptop on day one, you have an onboarding plan. Maybe there's some specific training videos that are sent to you and around. There's a buddy program. And at the end of 30 days, you like have a chat with your people ops or HR person. Like, how was the onboarding experience? Did your manager like take you on to your meetings and stuff like that? So that's really good, especially I think early on, to get a sense of what structure looks like. On the flip side, on a smaller company, depending on how small it is entirely chaos. Like it could be your CEO going down to the Apple store the day before you start. And like, okay, I need to buy a laptop for this new starter. And then suddenly you're like, oh crap, you don't have the right tools to start your day one. And those are some of the more funny nuances, I would say. But in terms of the difference of there is like, it's really what you want out of it. The large companies have much more structured teams. In marketing, to give an example, at a large company, think like Cisco, there's a large team that focuses on paid acquisition.
Right.
And then if you join that team, it is possible that you work on a specific campaign for a specific product line, for a specific region, and potentially like you have X number of keywords that you need to just like continually optimize. And that's it. Right.
Yep.
You may be like really, really good, really, really deep. But then on the flip side, on a small company, paid acquisition may be 20% of your time. And you get asked, and you see these things on LinkedIn, and like, there's these things that you can be doing. And I'm like, yeah, if I had more time, I could optimize and like set really strict negative keywords. Right. But then I just don't got the time because I need to figure out, like, I have an event next week that I need to run to organize some printing, or like I need a backdrop that I need to talk to my design people and to get the design in before the deadline. So those are the different kind of stuff. And it's, I think, for everyone to figure out what is it for them. What type of chaos would you like? I'm not saying the big company is perfect either, because the hurdles you need to go to, I'm like, okay, there's this paid thing. And you're like, okay, great. I want to target competitor keywords, for example. Does that need legal approval? In a small company, you kind of just do it. So what is it for you? In terms of the learnings, there's stuff to learn from both sides. It's just figuring out what you want to be and where you see yourself landing, is then you can hone in on the kind of skills that you want to hone in on, whether that's really, really deep on a particular thing, or you want to go super broad and be part of that growth of a smaller company.
That's funny. At my last company, on my first day, my manager, who was the CEO, was just like, all right, just start doing the marketing things that you think need to be done. And I was like, wait, what do we do? How does our product work? So I definitely felt that. Would you say you had a role that has really shaped your career? And why?
I think my current role, I'm coming up to 3 years. I moved here because I saw the learning opportunity that we spoke about. And you're like, okay, it's a smaller company. I get to see the different types of things that you like. Because a bit early on in your career, you think you like, I don't know, I'll go with paid acquisition. You think you like paid acquisition. You think this is it. But you kind of don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Like, if you've never seen like what brand marketing, what PR is like, what creating content is like, or running campaigns is like, how can you say that you're this without having an exposure to that? So I had a little bit, joining this role, I had exposure to like a bit more of the different kind of things, right? As I move close to smaller companies, I know like, okay, I'm really good at this. I really enjoy this. don't love this bit. Like, to be fully transparent, I don't love event marketing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not very good at it. There's so many little bits that you need to sort out, and a lot of it's out of your control. And that's something that I don't like. And you can go, okay, in a smaller company, you kind of do it and you're like, nah, that's not for me. But then you can go to your hopefully supportive team or supportive manager to go like, yeah, I really love this stuff. Don't really love this stuff. Can we figure out how I can do less of this, but more of this? And I've been able to do that in my current role. And I really focused in on, hey, working with sales is a big part of what I do, as well as driving that pipeline for marketing. So like working on the website, how do we squeeze more of the website is something that I've gotten a chance to do. And the last bit I didn't really mention is like work with people you enjoy working with. Like you could be working for really cool brands. I'll mention like you work for an Amazon or like a Google, whatever, like large company there. But to me, you ultimately work with the small team that you're working with. Like you could be working like, hey, I work at Google. We have the best perks, etc. But what is your media team like?
Yeah.
Like you don't get to work with all X how many thousand people there are, and like yeah, you get the good benefits, but who are you working with? And that's something that I've enjoyed here, working with like quite smart people.
Cool. Love that. In your current role, so diving a bit deeper into that, you've been promoted from a manager position to director. What would you say has contributed to this promotion? Maybe break down some of the skills that helped you level up.
I started a podcast with Nathaniel, and I think some of the things resonate there. But as I watched that, I reflected myself with what that is, and to me is you want to do things. Okay, let's take a step back. You're in this role and you want to get a promotion, whatever that promotion path is. Start visualizing like what that role is doing, whether there's someone in the role and you kind of see what they're doing, or you get a sense from seeing people on LinkedIn or seeing like other people in your network and what they're doing. Visualize what that is and just start doing it. Hopefully you're in a place, if you're in a place small enough, you definitely can. If you're a big enough place, you can find those opportunities, but see those opportunities. Like for me, it's like seeing, okay, well, in a manager role, I subscribe to Dave Kellogg's thinking of like, what is a manager? What is a director? What is a VP? And as a director, you truly just like, someone can just give you like, hey, there's this campaign. We have some money. Can you just make it happen and give some impact to us? A manager would be told, okay, you run this campaign and we're on a paid ad specifically for these 10 keywords, for example. But for a director level or for like a more senior level, you go, well, okay, well, this is the goal. We need to drive X amount of pipeline and we think an opportunity is from this campaign. Can you just run it for the next 3 months? And you truly take that and just run it. You're like, yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing, but I think we need to create 7 pieces of content, distribute it this way. I'm going to reach out to our videographer and get something and just start running it and show to your leadership team, to your managers that if you are promoted, you can do the job. It's going to be tough, but people appreciate initiative generally. And they say you're taking the initiative. You're showing that, yeah, you have some gaps, but then who doesn't? But you're showing the initiative, you're showing the positive attitude, and you can do some of it. And then you cement their thinking that like, okay, maybe instead of hiring outside, instead of promoting someone else, you're the person for the job. Failures are fine as long as you understand like, yeah, learning opportunity, you justify some of the actions that you take, whether that's based on data, whether that's based on your intuition, just got to keep doing it. And I think that's a big one. And to be fully honest, like starting my career as a lawyer has made it a bit difficult because lawyers are very risk averse. And you're like, well, yeah. I always want to ask for permission instead of just asking for forgiveness. And I think I've pivoted throughout the years and like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to ask for forgiveness. I'm like, it fails. I'm like, move on. I'll try the next thing. And like, I hopefully not to the point that you burn any bridges, but you're taking that initiative. I'm like, I'm just going to give this a go.
Love that. Love that one. Cool. Yeah, so approximately 2 years ago, UpGuard got some funding. What was the impact of this on your job? Would you say it made some things, funding, budget always makes things a bit easier, but also, adds some pressure, right? So what impact would you say it's had on your role?
If we go down the budget thinking, as you pointed out, it's budget makes things easier in your life generally. You're like, oh, hey, if you have more money, you can do more things. But the thing that doesn't get as much attention is like the increased pressure, the increased targets, right? The increased expectation that comes with money. So I do think it's like it's two-sided there. For me, if I take a step back and think more broadly, being part of growing business is what I really value. Right? You don't want to work, at least for me, in a business that's stagnant or going backwards. You want to grow. You want to be at a company that keeps growing because that means you grow with them. Whether that means funding sizes, whether that means your learning opportunities, or importantly to me, it's the ability to attract smart people to work with you, whether that's a peer, whether that's a direct report, whether that's your boss. Having more money in the bank helps that way. And you get more smart people because like we're able to attract better talent, which means the whole company is lifted and is better. But also you get to work with smarter people. And to the point that we talked about earlier around learning, you want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
Right. If you have smart people around you and the company's able to attract smart people around you, use that. Like ask them questions, like understand how their thought processes go, how are they so successful in their career, and absorb that. And I think that's the ability that you have. Because the larger companies obviously like attract really good talent, but I think being in a growing business, there's a different appeal, especially to me. And I think that's the biggest impact. The ability to like attract a better talent means that everyone's like hopefully better.
Awesome. So coming up on the last question here, something I ask everybody, what advice would you give to marketing managers who, aspire to be in a position like yours one day?
I think we talked about it a little bit. If you do aspire to get that next promotion, visualize and understand what that job would entail, both in terms of role and responsibilities. For example, they start owning campaign, they start talking to more senior stakeholders, like see that and start doing that. Find opportunities to start doing that. Whether if you're a big company, talk to your boss and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. Can you put me on it? Or, hey, I see that you're going to like a cross-functional sales meeting. Can I be included like once in a while? I just want to see what happens. I want to learn there. Or if it's like particularly different types of projects, ask to be part of it. Or even better, if you don't need to ask, just start doing it. Like you could have Slack in your week, you have 20% of time free, start doing it, start digging into data, present those insights that any strong senior person would, and start doing the job. That way you really cement that thinking in your leadership team, your managers team. You're like, actually, this is the person who can do it. They're growing in the role. Because it's very easy these days to, if you're in a role, especially after some time, you just keep doing what you're doing. Oh yeah, I'm just going to wait until something comes across my desk and I'll do it. I'll do it really well, but it's very different. As I see something across my desk, I'll do it really well, but I'll also see what a promotion path looks like and start doing that part of the job.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. Well, look, it's been great having you on the podcast. Tons of great advice you've given.
No, thanks, man. This has been great.
Awesome.